It's so big, but I'll accept it only for tonight. The giant mail order. Bride said as she saddle the cowboy and claim her man. It's so big, but I'll accept it only for tonight, Beatrice Thornwell breathes out as she stares at the dead Mary Ranch sprawled before her. 12,000 acres of wild Wyoming territory that her mail-order husband Jasper Colton expects a woman like her to tame. The giant bride sits in the barn's golden hay beside the cowboy she met only at sunrise, her massive frame dwarfing his lean, weathered body, her thick arms bulging against the seams of her checkered work dress as she holds the rifle he's pressed into her calloused hands. At 6'9" and 240 pounds of pure muscle, B has been rejected by 19 men who paid for a wife but sent back a monster. Their word, not hers. But Jasper Colton's desperate advertisement promised something different. Need a strong woman who ain't afraid of hard living, hard work, and a hard truth. I'm broke, I'm broken, and I got 30 days before the bank takes everything. Now sitting so close in this barn that she can feel the heat radiating from his smaller body, B sees something in Jasper's storm-blue eyes that makes her heart slam against her ribs. Not pity, not fear, but hunger. The kind of hunger that comes from 3 years of sleeping alone in a bed that still smells like death and shattered dreams. One night, she whispers, her voice trembling despite her towering presence. Give me one night to prove I ain't the freak they say I am. Come morning, if you can't bear the sight of me, I'll disappear before the town wakes. But even as the words leave her lips, Violet May Hutchins, the delicate, doll-faced banker's daughter who's been circling Jasper like a vulture circling carrion, steps into the barn doorway with a smile sharp as broken glass. Violet May's pink dress looks like it cost more than most families make in a year, all ruffles and ribbons that make her look like a porcelain doll someone forgot to put back in its box. Behind her stands her father, Silas Drummond, the banker who holds Jasper's foreclosure notice in his leather portfolio like a knife pressed against a throat. Well, well, Violet May says, her voice sweet as poisoned honey. Jasper Colton, sitting in the hay with his purchase. How romantic. She fans herself with her gloved hand, eyes traveling up and down B's massive frame like she's inspecting livestock at auction. Though I must say, darling, when you wrote for a mail-order bride, I didn't realize you meant you'd ordered her by the pound. The laughter cuts through the barn like glass breaking. B's jaw tightens, her fingers gripping the Winchester so hard Jasper hears the wood creak. He's seen this before, seen her trying to fold herself inward, shoulders curving, head bowing, trying to disappear into her own shadow. It's the same thing he's been doing for 3 years, ever since Mary bled out on their bedroom floor, her last words begging him not to let the ranch die with her. Violet May, Jasper says quietly, standing up and placing himself between B and the banker's daughter. This is my wife. You'll show her respect, or you'll leave my property. Violet May's smile doesn't falter, but something cold flashes in her green eyes. Your property, she laughs, the sound bright and cruel. Daddy, did you hear that? He still thinks this is his property. Silas Drummond steps forward, his silver pocket watch chain glinting in the afternoon light filtering through the barn slats. He's a tall man, well-fed, with the kind of confidence that comes from owning most of a town's debts. Now, Jasper, let's not be dramatic. You've got 28 days left on your loan. 28 days to come up with $3,000 you don't have, unless, of course, you'd like to discuss my offer again. Jasper's hands curl into fists at his sides. The offer. Sell the ranch to Drummond for a fraction of its worth. Walk away with enough to start over somewhere else, somewhere he doesn't see Mary's ghost in every corner. I ain't selling, Jasper says, his voice hard as iron. I'll have your money. With what? Drummond gestures around the barn, at the peeling paint and sagging beams, at the emptiness where horses and cattle should be. You've got no stock, no hands, no harvest coming. You've got dust and memories, boy. That's all. His eyes slide to B, still sitting in the hay with that rifle across her massive thighs. And now you've got, well, that. B stands up. The movement is slow, deliberate, like a mountain deciding to shift its weight. When she reaches her full height, the barn seems smaller, the ceiling closer. Violet May actually takes a step back, her pink skirts rustling. "Mr. Drummond," B says, her voice soft, but carrying the weight of something ancient and unmovable. "You say he's got dust and memories, but he's also got me now, and I ain't dust, I ain't a memory. I'm real flesh and real blood and real strong." She pauses, letting her massive frame cast its shadow across the banker and his daughter. "So maybe you should reconsider what Jasper Colton's got." The silence that follows feels like the moment before thunder. Violet May's face flushes red, her delicate features twisting with something ugly. "You think anyone in Salvation Creek will accept you?" she hisses. "You think anyone will trade with him, work with him, help him, once they know he's married to a freak? You're not an asset, darling. You're a curse, and by morning, when he's seen what you really are in the daylight, he'll be begging Daddy to take this ranch just to be rid of you." Bee's face doesn't change, but Jasper sees her hand tremble, sees the way her breath catches. He knows that look. It's the same look Mary had right before she stopped fighting, right before she let go. "Get out," Jasper says, his voice low and dangerous. "Both of you, get off my land." Drummond tips his hat, a mocking gesture. 28 days, Colton. Then it's my land." He turns to leave, Violet May trailing behind him, but the banker's daughter pauses at the barn door, looking back at Bee with something almost like pity. "One night," she says softly. "That's all you asked for, isn't it? One night to prove you're worth keeping. Well, sweetheart, I hope you make it count. Because come morning, when reality sets in, when he sees what the whole town sees, a giant, freakish woman who'll bring him nothing but mockery and shame, you'll be on the next stage out, and I'll be here to comfort him when you're gone." The barn door slams shut. Dust motes dance in the afternoon light. Bee stands frozen, her massive body rigid, her face a mask of control that Jasper recognizes because he's worn it himself for 3 years, the face of someone who's learned that showing pain only makes it hurt worse. "She's right," Bee finally says, her voice barely above a whisper. "About all of it. I shouldn't have come. I shouldn't have—" Her voice cracks, and she turns away, her huge shoulders shaking with the effort of holding something back. Jasper steps closer. He can smell her now, soap and sweat and the dusty scent of long travel. She smells real, solid, nothing like the perfumed ghosts that haunt his house. "Bee," he says quietly. "Look at me." She doesn't turn around. Her hands are clenched at her sides, knuckles white despite the dark bronze of her skin. "Mr. Colton, you don't have to be kind. I've had kind before. Kind is what men do right before they send you back. Kind is worse than honest cruelty because it makes you hope, and hope—" Her voice breaks completely. "Hope is the most dangerous thing a woman like me can carry." Jasper moves around her until he's standing in front of her, and even though she's nearly a foot taller, even though her frame could probably snap him like kindling, there's something in her face that makes his chest ache, a raw, bleeding vulnerability that has nothing to do with size or strength. "You're wrong," he says simply. "About hope, about yourself, about tonight." He reaches up, has to reach up, which feels strange and somehow right, and touches her chin, tilting her face down so she has to meet his eyes. "I didn't write that advertisement looking for someone small or delicate or easy. I wrote it because I needed someone real, someone strong enough to survive what's coming. And B." His thumb brushes her jawline, feels the tremor running through her massive frame. You're the first real thing that's walked into my life in 3 years. A tear escapes down her cheek, cutting a clean line through the trail dust on her face. You say that now, but when the town turns on you because of me, when Drummond makes good on his threats, when you lose everything because you're tied to a woman who makes children scream and grown men cross the street, you'll wish you'd sent me back with the others. The others were fools, Jasper says, and there's heat in his voice now, anger on her behalf that surprises them both. Every single man who looked at you and saw something wrong instead of something extraordinary was a damned fool. And I ain't a fool, B. I'm desperate, I'm broke, I'm half dead inside, but I ain't a fool. He drops his hand from her face, steps back. You asked for one night, fine. One night to prove yourself, but I'm asking for the same thing. One night for you to see that maybe, just maybe, you found the one man in this world stupid enough, or crazy enough, or broken enough to see you exactly as you are, and want you anyway. The words hang in the air between them like a prayer and a challenge. B stares at him, her gray eyes searching his face for the lie, for the crack in the facade, for the moment when kindness will curdle into disgust. She's looked for that moment 19 times before. She's always found it. What do you want me to do? She finally asks, her voice steadier now, pulled back from the edge of breaking. Jasper glances toward the barn doors, toward the setting sun painting the Wyoming sky in shades of blood and gold. Can you really ride? He asks. I mean truly ride, not just sit a gentle mare. I can ride anything with 4 legs, B says, and there's a flicker of something like pride in her voice. My papa, before they... She stops, swallows hard. My papa was a horsebreaker, taught me before I was old enough to read, said my size was a gift for it, not a curse, said horses respond to strength when it's paired with gentleness. There's a stallion in the back pasture, Jasper says slowly, watching her face. Black as midnight, mean as hell. Name's Goliath. Threw my last ranch hand so hard the man's still limping 3 months later. Drummond's been trying to buy him from me for 2 years, wants to put him down, says he's too dangerous to let live. He pauses. But I think he's just been waiting for someone who speaks his language, someone strong enough to earn his respect instead of trying to beat it out of him. B's eyes widen. You want me to break him? Tonight? I want you to show this town what I already know, Jasper says quietly. That strength like yours isn't something to fear. It's something to thank God for. He picks up the Winchester, checks the chamber, hands it back to her. But first, we eat. I've got venison stew on the stove and Mary's biscuits. He stops, the name catching in his throat like broken glass. My late wife's recipe. You'll need your strength if you're going to saddle Goliath and claim this cowboy like you promised. The way he says it, claim this cowboy, sends heat rushing through B's chest. She's never claimed anything in her life. She's only ever been rejected, returned, reduced to something less than human. Mr. Colton, Jasper, he corrects. If you're going to be my wife, even for just one night, you call me Jasper. Jasper, she repeats, and the name feels strange on her tongue, intimate in a way that makes her want to run. Why are you doing this? Why are you being so... She struggles for the word. So certain about me when you don't even know me. He's quiet for a long moment, his blue eyes distant, seeing something she can't. 3 years ago, my Mary was in labor for 2 days. 2 days of screaming and bleeding and breaking apart. The doctor, the one we could afford, he looked at me on the second night and said I had to choose. Save Mary or save the baby. Couldn't save both. His voice goes flat, mechanical, the way voices do when they're telling stories they've told themselves too many times in the dark. I chose Mary. I chose my wife. And she died anyway. The baby died anyway. And the last thing she said to me, right before the light went out of her eyes was, "Don't let it end here. Promise me you'll find life again. Promise me you'll keep our home. Promise me you won't die in this house like I am." Tears are streaming down Bee's face now, silent and unstoppable. "I'm sorry," she whispers. "I'm so sorry." "I broke that promise every day for 3 years," Jasper continues, his voice rough. "I let the ranch fall apart. I let the animals go. I let Drummond's debt pile up until foreclosure became inevitable. I died in that house, Bee. I'm still dying in it. And then yesterday, I was sitting at Mary's grave, telling her I failed, telling her I was ready to just let it all go. And I heard the stagecoach horn. I heard it, and something in me, some stupid, stubborn part that sounds like Mary's voice, said, 'Get up. Go meet her. Maybe she's the answer you stopped praying for.'" He looks at Bee, really looks at her, his eyes raw and honest. "So no, I don't know you, but I know what it looks like when someone's been told they're too much or not enough their whole life. I know what it looks like when someone's been breaking themselves down to fit into spaces too small for them. And I know what it looks like when someone's got one last chance to prove they're worth the air they breathe." He extends his hand to her. "So maybe we're both here for the same reason, Bee. Maybe we're both trying to survive one more night." Bee stares at his hand, so much smaller than hers, weathered and scarred and trembling slightly. She could crush it without effort. She could hurt him without meaning to. She's hurt everyone without meaning to. But slowly, carefully, she reaches out and takes his hand in hers, and for the first time in her life, she doesn't try to make her grip gentle or small or apologetic. She just holds him, and he holds her back, his fingers laced through hers like they belong there. "One night," she says softly. "We survive one night together. And whatever happens at dawn," "Whatever happens at dawn," Jasper agrees, "we'll face it as husband and wife, not strangers, not master and servant, partners, even if it's just for tonight." They walk out of the barn together, hand in hand, her towering over him like a mountain sheltering a valley, him steady beside her like an anchor in a storm. The evening sun paints them in gold and shadow as they head toward the house, a sagging, weathered structure that looks like it's held together by grief and stubbornness. Smoke curls from the chimney. The scent of venison and herbs drifts on the wind. And for the first time since she stepped off that stagecoach, Beatrice Thornwell lets herself imagine, just for a heartbeat, just for one dangerous moment, what it might feel like to have a home. But behind them, visible through the barn's open door, the black stallion Goliath paces in his distant pen, wild-eyed and restless, waiting for the woman brave enough or broken enough to try to break him. And in town, Violet May Hutchins sits in her father's study, writing names in a leather journal, names of every merchant, every rancher, every family that owes Silas Drummond money or favors, preparing the social execution of Jasper Colton and his giant freak bride. The war hasn't started yet, but both sides are sharpening their weapons. And tonight, when Bee tries to saddle that devil horse and claim her cowboy in front of the whole town, everyone will learn what happens when you back a woman into a corner and tell her she's too big to be loved. The house smells like death tried to perfume itself with stew. Bee notices it the moment she crosses the threshold. Beneath the rich aroma of simmering venison and herbs, there's something else. Dust thick enough to taste. Unwashed linens. The stale, heavy scent of a place where a man has been rotting alive for 3 years. The furniture is covered in gray film. Dishes are piled in the basin. And on the mantel above the fireplace, there's a wedding photograph in a tarnished silver frame. A younger Jasper with his arm around a small, pretty woman with dark hair and laughing eyes. Mary, the ghost who still owns this house. Jasper sees Bee staring at the photograph, and something in his face closes off, a door slamming shut. I'll get the stew, he says quickly, disappearing into the kitchen before she can respond. Bee stands alone in the parlor, feeling like an intruder in a shrine. Her massive frame seems to take up all the air in the room. She's afraid to sit on the furniture, afraid she'll break it, afraid her weight will leave permanent marks in cushions that still hold the impression of smaller, more acceptable bodies. So she just stands there, hands clasped in front of her like a child waiting to be punished, until Jasper returns with 2 bowls and a plate of biscuits that look like they were made by someone who knew what love tasted like. Sit, Jasper says, nodding toward the table. Please. Bee lowers herself carefully into a chair that creaks under her weight. The sound makes her flinch. Jasper pretends not to notice, setting a bowl in front of her that's filled to the brim with thick, steaming stew. Eat, he says gently. You've been traveling for days. You need strength for what comes next. The stew is good. Better than good. The venison is tender, the vegetables perfectly cooked, the broth rich with herbs she can't name. Bee eats slowly, trying to be delicate, trying to make her large hands look graceful around the spoon. But she's starving. She's been starving for longer than this trip. She's been starving her whole life for something that isn't just food, for acceptance, for safety, for one person to look at her without flinching. So she eats, and Jasper watches her with something in his eyes that makes her chest ache. When's the last time someone cooked for you? He asks quietly. Bee pauses, spoon halfway to her mouth. My papa, she says after a long moment. Before, she stops, swallows hard. 12 years ago. What happened to him? The question sits between them like a loaded gun. Bee sets down her spoon, her appetite suddenly gone, despite the hunger gnawing at her belly. He was big like me, she says softly. 6'7", built like an ox, gentlest man you ever met, wouldn't hurt a fly. But people saw his size and they got scared, made up stories about him, said he was dangerous, said he was a threat. Her voice drops to barely above a whisper. There was a girl in our town, a white girl, pretty little thing, who went missing for 2 days. When they found her, she'd just wandered off, gotten lost in the woods. But her father... Bee's hands clench into fists on the table. Her father said my papa had taken her, said he'd seen him near the woods, had no proof, no evidence. Just fear and a big black man who looked like he could snap a person in half. Jasper's face has gone very still. They hanged him. They hanged him, Bee confirms, her voice flat now, all emotion scraped out of it. I watched. They made me watch. I was 12 years old, and they made me stand there and watch my papa die for a crime he didn't commit, all because he was too big, too strong, too different for them to feel safe around. She looks up at Jasper, her gray eyes burning with tears she refuses to let fall. You want to know why I asked for just one night? Why I'm so sure you'll send me away come morning? Because I learned something that day, Jasper. I learned that people will destroy what they fear. And I've been making myself smaller, quieter, less threatening ever since, trying to survive in a world that sees my size as a crime I'm committing just by existing. The silence that follows is broken only by the crackling fire and the wind outside. Jasper reaches across the table and takes her massive hand in both of his smaller ones. I won't let that happen to you, he says, his voice fierce. I won't let anyone hurt you. Not here. Not while I'm alive. You can't promise that, Bee whispers. You saw Violet May. You heard what she said. She's going to turn this whole town against us, against me. And you're going to lose everything because you were kind to a woman everyone else had the good sense to reject. Then I lose everything, Jasper says simply. I was losing it anyway, at least this way. I lose it fighting for something that matters instead of just giving up. He squeezes her hand. Eat your stew, Bee. We've got a horse to break and a town to shock. She wants to argue. She wants to tell him he's making a mistake, that kindness isn't enough, that the world will chew them up and spit them out. But instead, she picks up her spoon and finishes her meal, and for just a moment, sitting in this dusty, ghost-haunted house with a man who's as broken as she is, Beatrice Thornwell lets herself pretend that maybe, just maybe, one night could turn into something more. When the bowls are empty, Jasper stands and offers her his hand. "Come on," he says. "Let's go meet Goliath." They walk through the dying light toward the back pasture, and Bee can see him from 100 yards away, a black stallion with a coat like polished obsidian, standing 16 hands high with muscles rippling beneath his skin like coiled steel. He's pacing the fence line, tossing his massive head, eyes rolling white with barely contained fury. "Jesus," Bee breathes. "He's magnificent." "He's a killer," Jasper corrects quietly. "Threw my last hand so hard the man couldn't work for 2 months. Nearly trampled my neighbor's son. Drummond's been trying to buy him just so he can put a bullet in his brain. Says a horse that mean doesn't deserve to live." He looks at Bee. "But I think he's just been waiting for someone who understands what it's like to be punished for being powerful." Bee approaches the fence slowly, her footsteps heavy in the dust. Goliath stops pacing, his ears flattening against his skull as he watches her. She can see the scars on his flanks, whip marks, spur gouges, the evidence of men who tried to break him through pain. "They hurt you," she says softly, not to Jasper but to the horse. "They hurt you, and then called you mean for fighting back." Goliath snorts, stamping the ground with one massive hoof. But he doesn't charge. He doesn't retreat. He just watches her with those wild, intelligent eyes, watching the way she moves, the way she holds herself, the way she doesn't flinch or shrink despite his obvious threat. "I know what that's like," Bee continues, her voice low and steady. "Being hurt for something you can't help, being called dangerous when all you wanted was to be left alone, being punished for being born wrong." She climbs over the fence, one smooth, powerful motion that makes Jasper's breath catch, because he's never seen anyone move like that. Never seen someone so big move with such unconscious grace. Bee lands in the pasture and stands still, arms at her sides, presenting herself to Goliath like an offering. "I ain't here to break you," she says quietly. "I ain't here to hurt you or tame you or make you into something you're not. I'm just here to ask you a question." Goliath takes a step forward, then another. His nostrils flare as he scents her, sweat and fear, and something else, something that smells like recognition, like meeting someone who speaks the same language of survival. "The question is this," Bee continues, her gray eyes locked on the stallion's. "Are you tired of fighting alone? Are you tired of being the monster they made you? Because I am. God help me. I'm so tired of it I could die. And I'm hoping, that maybe we could stop fighting alone. Maybe we could fight together instead." The stallion is close enough now that she could touch him, close enough that one bite, one kick, could end her life in a heartbeat. Behind the fence, Jasper's hand hovers near the rifle he brought, ready to shoot if the horse attacks. But Bee doesn't move. She just stands there, this giant woman in her simple plaid dress, offering herself to a creature as hurt and dangerous as she is. "I'm going to touch you now," she whispers. "And if you want to hurt me for it, that's your right. Lord knows enough people have earned that right. But if you let me touch you, if you let me prove that strength doesn't always have to mean pain, then maybe we both get to be something other than monsters tonight." She reaches out slowly, telegraphing every movement, giving Goliath every chance to bolt or strike. Her massive hand hovers inches from his muzzle. The stallion's ears swivel forward, back, forward again. His breath comes in hot gusts against her palm, and then, so carefully it's almost tender, Goliath lowers his head and presses his soft nose into Bee's hand. The breath Jasper didn't know he was holding explodes out of him. Bee's eyes fill with tears as she strokes the stallion's face, her touch gentle despite the strength in her hands. "That's it," she murmurs. "That's my brave boy, my beautiful, brave boy." Goliath leans into her touch, a low rumble vibrating through his massive chest. Not a threat, but something almost like a purr. "They called you mean," Bee says, her voice breaking. "They called you dangerous and wrong and broken. But you're not broken, are you? You're just tired of being hurt." She rests her forehead against Goliath's, and Jasper watches as this enormous woman and this deadly horse stand together in the fading light. Two creatures who've been told their whole lives that they're too much, too dangerous, too wrong to deserve gentleness, proving everyone wrong just by choosing not to destroy each other. "I need you to trust me," Bee whispers to the stallion. "I need you to let me ride you, not because I want to prove I'm stronger than you, but because I need to prove to all those people who hurt us that we're not the monsters they see. Can you do that? Can you trust me just for tonight?" Goliath pulls back, his dark eyes studying her face. For a long moment, the world holds its breath. Then the stallion bows his head, an unmistakable gesture of submission that has nothing to do with defeat and everything to do with recognition, with choice, with a decision to stop fighting and start trusting. Bee turns to look at Jasper, tears streaming down her face, her smile so bright it could light the darkening sky. "Get the saddle," she calls. "We're going to town." The ride into Salvation Creek feels like marching toward execution. Bee sits astride Goliath, her powerful thighs gripping his sides, her massive frame somehow looking natural on the enormous stallion. Jasper rides beside her on his old mare, watching the way Bee's hands stay gentle on the reins, even though she could control Goliath through pure strength. She's chosen softness. She's chosen trust. And the stallion responds like he's been waiting his whole life for someone who understands that power without gentleness is just cruelty in a different skin. The sun has set by the time they reach town, but the main street is lit with torches and lamplight spilling from the saloon. Saturday night, everyone's here. And when Bee and Jasper ride into view, this giant woman on the devil horse everyone said couldn't be broken. This desperate cowboy who chose her over dignity. The street goes silent. Absolutely silent. Violet May stands outside the general store with a crowd of townswomen, her pink dress glowing in the lamplight. Silas Drummond emerges from the saloon with a group of ranchers. Children stop playing to stare. And Bee feels every eye on her like brands burning into her skin. "Keep riding," Jasper says quietly. "Head high, show them." But Bee stops Goliath right in the center of town, right where everyone can see. She dismounts, one smooth, controlled motion, and stands at her full height. 6'9" of muscle and scars and unbroken will. "My name is Beatrice Colton," she says, her voice carrying across the silent street. "I'm Jasper's wife, and I know what you're all thinking. I know what you see when you look at me." She pauses, her gray eyes sweeping across the crowd. "You see a freak, a monster, something wrong and unnatural that shouldn't exist. I've heard it all before, been told it by 19 men who sent me back like broken merchandise." Violet May's smile is vicious. "Then you know what's coming, don't you, Mrs. Colton? You know that by morning, when your husband comes to his senses." "I ain't coming to my senses," Jasper interrupts, dismounting and moving to stand beside Bee. His hand finds hers, small fingers lacing through her larger ones. "I already came to them. The day I realized that strength like hers isn't something to fear, it's something to thank God for. The day I realized that every man who rejected her was a fool who couldn't recognize a blessing when it towered over him." A ripple of shocked whispers runs through the crowd. Drummond steps forward, his face dark with anger. "You're throwing your life away for a circus attraction, Colton." And for what? You still can't pay your debt. You still lose the ranch in 28 days. All you're doing is making yourself a laughingstock before you lose everything. Maybe, Jasper agrees calmly. Or maybe I'm finally understanding what my Mary tried to tell me before she died, that holding on to dead things will kill you, but reaching for something alive, something real, something that scares you because it's too big and too powerful and too much, that's what keeps you breathing. He looks up at Bee, his blue eyes blazing. I was dead until she arrived, and I'd rather lose everything standing beside her than win anything standing alone. The words crack something open in Bee's chest. She turns to Jasper, this small, broken cowboy who just claimed her in front of everyone who wanted to watch her fail, and she does something she's never done in public. She leans down and kisses him. Really kisses him, pouring 12 years of rejection and loneliness and desperate hope into the press of her lips against his. And Jasper kisses her back like she's oxygen and he's been drowning. When they pull apart, the crowd is chaos. Some people cheering, others disgusted. Violet May's face twisted with pure hatred. But Bee doesn't care anymore. She climbs back onto Goliath, pulls Jasper up behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist, holding her like she's precious. And they ride out of town together. This giant woman and her cowboy, this devil horse who learned to trust, heading back toward a house that might finally stop being a tomb and start being a home. The war with Drummond isn't over. The town's judgment isn't finished. But tonight, just for tonight, Bee Colton claimed her man, saddled her future, and proved that sometimes the biggest love stories are the ones that make the whole world uncomfortable. Because real love isn't small or quiet or easy to swallow. Real love is big, so big it scares people. And Bee's done making herself smaller for a world too frightened to handle her size. Where are you watching from? And what time is it where you are? Drop it in the comments. Let's see how far this love story has traveled across the world.